Alrighty, how you guys doing? Christian Yetke here. And finally, here we are for the first of our series, of our 10-week series on traditional masculinity in the ways of the Bible, not man. Now, the whole reason I'm doing this is because overall, in today's world, we have a problem. We have a very deep-rooted problem. We are sick. And if we don't heal what is sick, then it's only going to keep getting worse. If you don't deal with the root problem, then the symptoms, you can put a band-aid on a symptom, but you'll never heal the wound and you'll never feel better. You're never actually going to get better if you don't deal with the root cause. So that is what this whole series is. That is what everything that I'm doing and working on has been compiled into, is this idea of bringing back the traditionality, bringing back masculinity, right? Because there's no such thing as toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. There's just men and women that are just toxic people. They just happen to be either a man or a woman, right? And to be a man is now, they're just, that's literally just their sex. It doesn't even, you say man, we used to think that it had like this very great meaning behind it, and it should. And I want to bring us back to the fact that when someone said man, it's like I could trust him. He's loyal. He's honest. He can fight. He can defend. He can protect. He can provide. He can do all the things that we used to do traditionally. And you can only do that whenever you're fully masculine. And that's not anything bad. And we're going to go through what is good and what is not good. So come with me on this journey, guys. I'd love for you to see and just let me know what you think about this. All right. Because also, to be the traditionally masculine, right? If you want to be a man, right, then you got to be a traditional man. If you want to be a traditional man, you have to be a masculine man. And to be a masculine man, you have to be a godly man, because you can't have, just one part of something, right? It takes all these different parts to become this one thing, to be this great thing, this absolutely fantastic, best version of yourself. There's no one thing, right? You don't go to the gym and just do curls and never, hit another body part, otherwise it's not going to look good, right? It's not going to look right. You have to hit everything that, pertains to it. So that's what we're going to try and work on here. And this is just going to be the first of the 7 steps that I have believed to have been the absolute very big detrimental steps that everyone should take. Everyone, no matter what age you are, boy or man. So the first 7 steps will be these 7 weeks, and that is all just part 1 out of a 4-part series. All right, last 3 parts will be the last 3 weeks. So the very first thing that I believe is that you have to be right with God, and you have to build the unbreakable relationship with him, right? Because any foundation, guys, right? Any foundation has to be solid. If you have a wood frame, if you have sand, right? If you build your house on a sand, on cardboard, if you build it on something weak, flimsy, plywood, anything, then any kind of a storm, any kind of a, little gust of wind, it's going to blow it over, right? But if you have concrete that's cemented down, right? If you have the rebar in there that's holding it tight, that is not going to break under a wind or a gush, breeze of wind, a bunch of water coming in, heavy rainfall, it's not going to fall. It's not going to break. It is going to hold the rest of the structure up. So if you have a weak base, if you have a weak structure, then the rest is going to go down, right? But if it's strong, if it is set in its way, if it is solid with its knowledge and its belief and its core values, every man should have a core value or core values, then you're going to be much better off. But right now, we don't have those. So let's bring it back. We got to bring that back to God. All right. So very simple, right? The Stoics. We're going to talk a lot about Stoicism in here with like Marcus Aurelius and others, right? Treat others as you would like to be treated by them. That's one of the simplest and most influential of all the ethical principles that the Stoics themselves believe. If you ever have heard of or know anything about Stoicism, then you go and look at it when they have like this core belief and value of just treat others the way you want to be treated, right? It's very simple. It is so basic. It's so basic and simple that if we followed it, we wouldn't have 99% of the problems we do, right? All right, the proud person always wants to do the right thing, the great thing. But because he wants to do it in his own strength, he is fighting not with man, but with God. That's Soren Kierkegaard. Another famous philosopher, very, very smart man. And we always just use back to, people like him and just their mind of just what they say, like things like this. He's saying the same thing. If we as humans, we're dumb, we're ignorant, there's not a lot to us as just humans. We have to have something bigger, right? We have to have God in the center, and we have to be having something bigger than ourselves. And there's nothing that's going to be bigger than us than God, right? Not our friends, not our family, not our job, not our title, not the amount of zeros we have in the bank. Nothing is going to give us more of an identity. You can try and have that as your identity and you will fail every time, right? But if you have God and a purpose and a reason behind who you are, then that is where you're going to be. All right. So have God as the center, find out what that relationship is with you, right? A relationship, not a religion. I don't like religion. I am very much against religion because religion is the beginning of division in my personal opinion, because as soon as someone says, what church you go to? It's like, oh, I go to Baptist, or I go to Christian, no, I go to synagogue. Well, I go to a mosque. Well, I go to these things. Well, then we're already trying to find where the division is. Let's find where the communion is. And that's going to come through love, and that's going to come through a relationship. You believe in Jesus? So do I. You love him? So do I. You do what the Bible says? So do I. You read the Bible actually, not acting like you do? Well, so do I. I actually read it. I actually try to follow it. We need to get back to that. A relationship. You're not going to have a good relationship with anyone. You're not going to have a good relationship with a girl that you want to have to be your wife, or your current wife, or whatever your situation is. You're not going to have that if you are just seeing her or talking to her once a week. That's a daily thing you have to build. Anyone who's been in a relationship knows that very well. It's even more important with your relationship with God because he's your creator and he's going to provide everything for you. Let's move on. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Again, it's another Stoic quote. I don't remember who it was from exactly, but it's knowing that there is something bigger than you. It's knowing that we will never be able to be it all, right? We will never be able to just be this all ultimate human being of knowledge and wisdom and power and might, because we're human and we're going to eventually die, right? After a few years, we die, right? We're here for a short time. There is something much bigger in this world than us. Just to reinforce that, guys, the scripture says it, and this was written many thousands of years ago, right? So for the one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, for him it is sin. James 4:17. It's pretty simple, guys. We have got to focus on what's not going to be a short-term gratification thing, right? Sin is always going to be short-term gratification every single time, right? Sex, porn, drinking, alcohol, drugs, cheating, all of it. It's going to be a short-term little boost of fun. It's going to hit that, release some dopamine, but you're going to be feeling the consequences and hating yourself and being just not happy with yourself, to say the least, for a very long time after that. Forever, actually. You're going to be remembering those sins forever, just for a quick little bit. So don't give into the sin. You know what's right and wrong. If you wanted that to be done to you, ask yourself that question, right? Leading into our next one. And everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you, Matthew 7:12. Just like the Stoics said, treat others the way you want to be treated. It is so simple, guys. It really is. But we think it's much more complicated. It doesn't say treat others the way they did treat you, the way that you think they treat you, the way you want them to treat you. It is, how do you want to be treated, and then treat them like that. So that means even whenever they lie to you, you still treat them with love and respect. I mean, you might not trust that person because they stab you in the back, they lie, they cheat, they steal. You don't have to trust them, but doesn't mean that you're going to go and become bad or do bad or want bad for them, right? Just means cut ties with them. Your situation. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. Again, Stoics are saying it. The Bible's been saying it. People have been saying it forever, who at least have half a brain. We can't do it on our own. Nothing and no one ever, anywhere, whatever, who's ever, worth anything, will ever say that you can do it alone. You need friends, you need family, you need support, you need something much bigger than you. You need something that's going to keep you focused, that's going to be bigger than you could ever even dream of being. And then you are helping that, you are serving that, and that is God. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. Luke 10:27. Again, reaffirming Matthew 7:12 up there, and just saying that those are the two greatest commandments we are given, right? Everything, all the 613 commandments in the Bible, we are given And all of it could be summed up in these two right here. And honestly, you could sum it up into just Matthew 7:12 there, because if you were to love God with all your heart, soul, strength, mind, and being, then that would be obeying him. And to obey him is to love, because he is love. And that would be having a good relationship. That would be treating others the way you want to be treated, right? That's where we could be. That's who we could be. And it's hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not hard, but that is something to reach for. That's a goal to aim for. Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. The one who comes to me will not be hungry, and the one who believes in me will never be thirsty. John 6:35. So we have to go to him, right? He will be the salvation. He will be the answer to all that we need. And that's it. It's like we were being told, we can learn it, we can feel it, we can understand it. Go to the source that's going to constantly give to you, and it will fulfill you, right? You'll never be hungry again. You'll never be thirsty again. You'll never want again. You'll never need again, because you have the only thing you need, and he'll provide the rest. Alrighty, moving on to some of the big core things is going to be starting off with, you need to pray, you need to read, you have to spend that time with God every single day. All right. God, the way he speaks to us, I mean, he can speak to us in any number of ways, right? He can TV, he can speak to you through memes, he can speak to you through the Bible. That's his word. That's how he's really going to speak to you. And that's how you're going to comprehend more so than not. God can talk to you in any way possible, right? Through another person, through the TV, through the Bible, through thought, through just the Spirit telling you whatever it is. He can reach you in any way, but the Bible's there. That's his word. That's his literal word, and it's his life, the word, God, love. It is all the same thing, and it's all there for us. So if you actually want to know, if you actually want to have a relationship, if you actually want to hear what he has to say, don't sit there and be all, well, if God, I'm right here. If God wanted to reach me, he could. We've all had that little arrogant side at some point, or maybe you still do. He can, but I mean, if you want it, it's right there. You have to read it. You have to put in the work, right? So yeah, you got to read it, man. You got to read, and that's how one of the greatest ways he's going to speak to you. And you'll read a Bible verse, and it will come across. You'll read it one day, and you read it in another week or month or year, and it will come across a whole lot different, right? Read, pray. Praying is how you are. I love the way Jordan Peterson says this, because he's got a couple different views that I'm gonna butcher a little bit, but it's the overall idea is that he says that one, prayer is kind of a way of saying to God, how can I not be stupid as the human flesh retardedness that I am? How can I not be stupid anymore, right? How can I be less stupid? How can you help me become better, right? And not give into this hedonistic life or sinful ways or any of the sort, right? Another way that I believe he is depicted, if you will, is that, one, there's that one. And then there's whenever he's saying, you're intentionally inviting God in, right? God's there. He knows your heart. He knows your mind. He knows your soul. He knows what's going to happen to you. He knit you in your mother's womb with his own hands. He knows it all. Nothing's going to surprise him. No thought, no belief, no want, whether it's good or bad. He knows. But when you pray, so when I pray out loud now. A buddy had told me about that, and I tried it in the past 2.5 years now. I've never prayed in my head since then. I just pray out loud, because I am intentionally allowing God into this situation, what I'm praying for, right? The situation, the help, the guidance, praying for someone else, whatever the case is that you pray for. It is you intentionally saying, hey, God, I'm actually wanting you to be a part of this, right? Obviously, he already is, but people want to see effort, right? I mean, God's obviously not people, he's ultimate, but as a human, would you want to see someone actually put an effort to help you or to do good or something along those lines? It's like, even if it didn't matter, if it's like, oh, I don't care. You want to see effort, put in the effort and actually invite him in, allow him to be a part of it with you, right? That's all anyone wants, is to be invited in and want to be there. So the function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. Or on Kierkegaard again. So he says it best there, is that, it's to change the nature of the one who prays. Like, we are going to be us today, and we could be so much different tomorrow, right? And we will be tomorrow. a whole lot different than today and yesterday and last week. Hopefully, Lord willing, you will be better. You will be different. But that's what the nature of prayer is to say, hey, God, can you come in and help me out and make me better, make me more, right? Whatever that looks like. Submit therefore to God, but resist the devil and he will flee from you. Come close to God and he will come close to you. James 4:7-8. 4:7-8. So God, he is there, right? But you have to resist the devil, right? And it sucks. It really sucks. It's really hard because the flesh is so wanting to just be in and just have fun and release the dopamine and just relax and hang out and do all those things. And it's not that that's bad, but the way you go about it is. So when you have to flee, when you have to resist, when you have to go against the devil, the world, the flesh, that's what it is. You have to go against it. And that's going to lead us into this next part. Oh my gosh, I'm always in the way here, aren't I? Okay, so anyways, leading up into here, you have to sacrifice your flesh every single day, right? We're told to pick up and carry our cross every single day to be a disciple of Christ, right? The brave man is he who overcomes not only his enemies, but his pleasures. Democritus. I don't know. I might be pronouncing that right. I'm not that good. Barely speak English. So very famous guy, right? He knows his stuff, but like listen to those words. A brave man is not only one who can anyone can overcome something easy. Anyone can get through an easy day. Anyone can be fine and mentally sane on an easy day, but that's not where you're tested. No one is tested on an easy day. It is through trials, it's through tribulation, it's through hard things, right? That is where you are tested. So if you want to test yourself, if you want to know who you are, you have to separate yourself. Your friends might want to go drink. They might want to go out to the club. They might want to do drugs. They might want to sleep around. They might want to be doing something that's dumb and wrong and evil and sinful. And that's what you have to pull yourself away from. Sometimes you just got to be alone. But if when you do what is right and suffer for it, you patiently endure it, this finds favor with God, 1 Peter 2:20. God's going to want us, he knows your heart. If he sees that you're actually trying to change your heart and saying, God, I'm lost, I'm hurt, I'm all these things, you know that, like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, hey, I'm here, my arms are open, come to me, give me the burdens, I'll take them. He's never going to turn away from you. He never has, he never will. He will always say, just give your burdens over to me. Give me your struggles and all your stresses. I will take the chains, I will break them. That's what the Father is always saying to you. That's where he's always at. You're walking this way. He's right behind you with his arms open, like, just give it to me. I'm here. Okay. So it's hard though. And it is hard to sacrifice your flesh because it feels like you're going against nature. And it's not necessarily nature. It's the sinful part, really. But going against the flesh, it's nice to sleep in. But guess what? You got things to do. So you might just want to get up and get started with the day. You're supposed to be praying, remember? Go ask to pray or go pray. Go ask to get better in the day. And you got to sacrifice that flesh. And that's hard. It really is. And you have to do that every single day for the rest of your life. But it's not going to get easier. You just get stronger. Okay, remember that. You don't go to the gym and grab a 20-pound dumbbell and curl it. And, it's your first day in the gym. You've never been there before. And then you start doing it. And then you're like, oh, you can get 1, 2, 5 reps maybe. And you're like, oh, I'm tired. But if you've been doing that and you do that consistently for weeks, months, years, you come back and you're curling that 20. Maybe now you're doing a 30. And now you're doing 10, 20, 30, 40 reps. Now you can do a lot more. It's not because the weight got lighter. It's because you got stronger, because you said no to the flesh more. You turned away and said, guys, we were friends. We grew up together. I know you. We hang out. We blah, 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 blah. I love you, but y'all are living this sinful life. I don't want to live that anymore. Y'all don't want to change. So I'm going to go. And those are the kinds of things that challenge us, guys. Those are the tests in life. I believe every second of every day for our entire existence, from when we're born till when we die, until the very end, when we see the Father come home, is as simple as it's a test. So what are you going to do in that test? Are you going to pass or are you going to fail that situation, right? And if you fail, then you better hopefully learn the lesson, right? If you pass it, then great. make sure that you find something that's a little bit harder and then work towards that and go until you stop failing. But anyways, you're going to always be in a hard situation. There's always tests, trials, tribulations. Life will always be in the way, right? It's hard to survive as it is and to just get by. So what are those things, and what do you normally give into the flesh when you say, oh, it's been a long day, so I'm gonna go watch porn and release, right? And just go relax for a little bit. What are you going to be filling your time with? There's always going to be a hard situation. You know that. How many times do you come home whenever things are stressful and it's easy? Like, it's not. Life's stressful. You got a job, you got school, you got a family, you got kids, you got kids sports, you got, people misbehaving, you got, arguments with your spouse. There's all these different types of scenarios. Everyone's going to have something, right? But the tests are what determine on if you should be moving forward or not. That's what I believe, at least. I believe that when you're praying for something, right, you're asking God in, you're like, I'm going to read and pray. All right, let's do this thing. Teach me what I need to know. Help me out, Father. And if you're praying for something and it's like, all right, God, I've had this porn addiction for so long, I have, like, pretty much every other guy I've ever come across. And then you have to overcome that, right? You have to sacrifice the flesh because it feels good in the moment, right? Everyone likes in the moment, but everything leading up to it, and especially everything afterwards, you just feel like absolute crap, and you just hate yourself a little bit more than you already did because you gave in to something that is so bad for you, and it just destroys you in every way that it can. There's not a single positive benefit to it, right? So if you're praying for, God, I have this problem, I'm 13, I'm 15, I'm 18, I'm watching porn, I don't want to do this anymore, help me. And then those situations are going to come up, and guess what? You're going to get annoyed. It's going to be a hard day. You're going to get a bad grade in school. Your ex is going to, or your girl's going to cheat on you, or your wife's going to walk out. There's going to be something that happens that sucks. And then that's the situation. All right. Whenever I go get in one of these bad situations, I normally go to my vice, my drug, my sin, my worldly, fleshly thing. Are you now going to start mentally telling yourself, all right, no, normally when I go in this situation, I do this bad thing. I'm not doing that anymore. So when this bad thing comes up, I'm not going to allow it, right? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. And if you give into it, you fail. If you overcome it, then you pass. Then it's like, awesome. But then you have to do that every single day. So you have to get to being able to pass every single day on that thing. All right. Fire test gold. Adversity of strong men, right? Seneca. Gold, it is, it's heated up, it's melted, but if it's gold, if it's solid gold, it does not melt away. It just melts into a different form, right? But it stays the way it is. It stays its actual essence, which is gold. Adversity, those hard times, that is what determines strong men, right? If you want to be that strong man, then take on those adversities, but do not conform to something else. Stay as who you are. Consider it all as joy, my brothers and sisters, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. James 1:2-3. Saying the same thing, guys, right? That's why it's here. It is reminding you that it's going to be hard, but when you overcome it, right? Whenever you overcome that desire to want to go drink because it's been a hard day, or because your wife yelled at you, or because you just feel crappy about yourself for a million different types of reasons, but you overcome it and you say, I don't care. You know what? I'm not going to give in to that. Awesome. You went and you overcame it. Now you got to do it again tomorrow, or just whenever the next time comes up, because it's probably going to come at you several times a day. So sometimes whenever you're needing to do stuff, right? Whenever God's needing you, he separates us, right? God's not lost. He knows where he is. He knows where we are in every sense that there is. But we're lost. We don't know where he is, or maybe even who he is. Maybe we just don't believe in him, right? Maybe we're just that lost and confused and hurt. So sometimes God actually has to have you get separated, whatever that looks like, and maybe he doesn't entirely, it's not like he's going to make every single one of your friends and family, turn on you and despise you and hate you. But sometimes he needs to separate you. So if you are in those groups of those people and those friends, and you're drinking and sleeping around and doing nothing that's good or positive in life. Like it's not even, let's just act like it's not even spiritual, right? Let's act like that's not even a thing. If you're doing that in these ways, and it's just not healthy in any way, it's not helping you out in life, it's not getting you to any closer goals, just get out of it. Say, you know what? I need to go figure myself out just as a person, right? So that's what God does. He's going to separate you. That can look different for each person in each situation, but he's going to separate you so that you can find him. He knows where you're at, but you have to find him. And that's what the reading and prayer, and that's what being consistent about it is. And where the Spirit of God is, there is freedom. 2 Corinthians 3:17. He is there. He is the freedom. We just have to find him. We have to allow the Spirit in us, right? We have to accept Christ as the Savior, and then we will be given the Spirit. Then God will be like, all right, he's like, all right, great. Let's get to work. We got some work to do. You're overcoming this, but this is going to be a continuous battle. And you got to put in the work. He's not just going to come and be like, all right, let's go. And you're just going to be like, all right, I believe. It's hard to believe something when you don't see it, right? As creatures, that's just how we are. We need to see it to believe it, and it's hard to believe something when we don't see it. So you got to put in the work. Human history is the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other that God, which will make him happy. C.S. Lewis. God is there. Life is a journey, right? We know that saying, it's the destination, or it's journey, not the destination, right? We have an end point, whatever that end point is for you. The journey is what gets you there, right? You want to find that salvation. That's the end goal, right? You want to get free. You want to feel better. You want to feel free again. You gotta give in. You gotta go to the Father, and and that is what your life is. Your life is that journey of going to find God, of finding that, because then that's the only way you will find your purpose. And we'll get to that in a few weeks on purpose specifically, and I can't wait for it. But right now, you just need to be spending that time if you want to find yourself, then you can't be distracted by the rest of the world. You have to be in solitude, if you will, right? Not literally, but you need to be separated from the distractions, from the lies, from the things that are keeping you from being who you're meant to be. And to do that, if you want to become someone, if you want to become something more than what you are, right? Because that's probably one of the reasons why you might be feeling like absolute crap and hate yourself, right? I'm a master of hating myself. I hated myself my entire life, literally from when I was a little kid to my earliest memory. For whatever reason, I just realized how much I hated myself, and I didn't know why, but I believed it, right? I didn't even stop that until a couple of years ago, right? From being saved, of course, because then that was a problem I had, gave it to him. He took off the chain, and I was like, whoa, I can actually like myself. I can actually love myself. But to do that, man, to do all these steps, you got to be on Faith Street. Okay. Steve Harvey said this the best. I don't know if it was his or he got it from somewhere else, but from Steve Harvey, he said, the best way, when you make a prayer and you say, and you send it to God, you make a prayer, you say, God, prayer, right? God wraps it up in a package, nice little neat bow and everything, and he sends it out. He just doesn't tell you whenever it's going to get there. So it's your job that you have to stay on Faith Street to wait for that package, that prayer, that blessing to come. So if you leave, you never know when it's going to come. So if you leave for even a moment, it could come at that point. And if you're gone, then who knows? Maybe it could never come back. Maybe it could come back the next day. Maybe it won't come back for another decade. You never know. But that's why you have to stay on Faith Street and trust and believe that what he has is better than what you could ever hope for. Now may the God of hope fill you with all the joy and peace in believing, so that you will abound and hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Romans 15:13. Just staying there, guys, man. Hope. Hope is, I want this thing and I hope for it. Faith is, I want this thing that I'm hoping for, but I have faith and trust in you, God, that if it does not work out, that you will have something even better than I could comprehend in place of it. That is faith. We want and have hope, but we have the faith in God, right? For just as the body without the spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead. James 2:26. And like if you say that, hey, if you're going to apply for a position and you're like, hey, I can do this X thing, but you've never actually done it, or you don't do it properly or efficiently, or you just don't care to do it, you just say it to get the position, well, then they're going to fire you, right? If you're like, yeah, I know how to use Word document, I don't know, right? I know how to file those papers. I know how the mailroom delivery system works. I know how to cut wood. I know how to do these things. And it's like, all right, cool, hired. You're on, you're doing the job. And then you go and not do the job, right? If you don't put in the work and actually try, then they're going to be like, well, what's going on? It's like, oh, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. You said you did, and then now you're not. So just think of it, you just think of it in that way or whatever way works for you. I got a different type of imagination and a way I think of things, but you have to stay on Faith Street. Crucial, absolutely crucial one for every person alive, but especially I'm just talking with you guys at the moment. Your identity is your God, and now you're choosing on which kind of God that is, little g or big G. All right. We think that life these days is that when we talk about worship, identity, gods, we're thinking that it's this, on our hands and knees bowing to a golden calf. And sure, there's forms of that type of bowing and worship and stuff. And that's what they see themselves in, is that's their identity, that's their God. But that's not what identity is mostly these days, right? That's not how people are worshiping these days anymore. It looks more like social media. It looks more like porn, or cheating, or any form of sexual immorality, right? We're hit very hard in the Bible on sexual immorality. And the fact that was a very big thing back then. So if it was a big thing back then, we have more access to it today. There's probably a little bit of a reason on why we're being told to stay away from it. Actually, to flee from it specifically, we were told to do. So worship, right? If you want to, what you spend your time, your life, your belief, your thoughts, your energy on, not saying like, oh, you have a job, or oh, you have hobbies, or oh, you have a family or something. Everyone's going to have these things. But if what you do and all you feed yourself is going to be these things, it is going to be a God, right? My thing was, I had mommy issues and daddy issues on both sides for many different reasons, and I was always chasing women, right? I was chasing women my entire life. And that's where I literally believed my actual identity was on whoever I could get to come home with me, however much sex I could have, however much I could party, who could drink more, et cetera, et cetera. I lived that lifestyle for years and I absolutely hated it. I hated it when I was in the moment doing it, but I still did it because everyone else around me did it. Right. And I was like, all right, well, that must be what I'm supposed to do because everyone else here is doing it. So obviously, it's a very big line wrong. So it is what your environment is, so whoever you have yourself around, you need to double check on who those are. So worship, identity, your God, whatever your identity is, whatever you see yourself doing. If you, like me, I was chasing women, I was like, all right, my self-worth comes from this woman's opinion of me. I made all girls my identity, my straight up idol in life. I did that for the majority of my life, and it was not good. It never was. Social media right now, we binge, we just death scroll, for hours a day, all hours of the night, our entire weekends. We'll sit there and just binge watch TV because we're just so lost in it. We're like, oh, I love this show so much, or I don't know what else to do in my life, so I'm just going to watch TV and I'm just going to be lost in this distraction, this entertainment, all this waste, right? There can be a okay, healthy version, or at least not as unhealthy, of watching some TV here and there. But if that's all you spend your time doing and you don't know who you are, that's when we call it a problem. And you're going to be broken. You will absolutely be broken in every way, every single time, because you don't have an actual identity and something bigger than you, right? You can put your identity in your family. Guess what? Unfortunate things can happen, like wife can cheat, kids can die in a car accident, your best friend can, die of cancer. There's all these different types of unfortunate situations that can happen in life. You know it because there's a 100% chance that every single one of you have had some type of an unfortunate thing happen to some degree in your life, right? Whatever the worst thing is that happened to you is the worst thing that's happened to you. It might not be the same as someone else. It's not meant to be. It's what's happened to you. So what are you doing? What are you spending your time with? How are you filling your thoughts, right? Our life is what our thoughts make it. Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic, another philosopher, another monumental man in the and the way of thinking. What are we doing with our thoughts? What are we spending them on, right? It's not like, all right, it's like, think about something bigger than yourself, more important than yourself. Because you can, again, you can have that family, but they can be gone. Your whole family can die in an accident. You could have your identity in your job, but guess what? You can get fired. Guess what? That business can go out, out of business. You have to find out something that is eternal to find your identity in. That's not saying that, all right, I found my identity in God. That means I have to be a pastor. Like, no, it doesn't. You know, I'm not a pastor or preacher or anything of that, but I will absolutely center everything that I do with business, with education, with helping others, with, you know, sports or anything that you do, doing any kind of martial arts, the gym, you can put it in anything, right? I go to the gym now and I get to talk to friends who like to lift weights and talk about Jesus. And I've literally never been in a better gym in my life. And that's normally how my days go. Go do some curls, go talk about a scripture verse. It is phenomenal. It's more fulfilling than anything. Likewise, urge the young men to be sensible in all things, show yourself to be an example of good deeds, with purity and doctrine, dignified, sound in speech, which is beyond reproach, so that the opponent will be put to shame, having nothing bad to say about us. Titus 2, 6-8. I don't know why I felt like it was a long breath. But anyways, guys, put in that time, right? Put in that effort. If you are doing and being a good, genuine, real, authentic person, the best version of yourself, the most real version of yourself, not putting on these masks for other people at different times, which I do know that much as well. I was always dressing up as some weird character or some kind of something. I was always wearing a mask that was always smiling. And then always underneath it, I was never myself because I didn't even know who myself was because I put my identity of myself into something else that wasn't me, girls, alcohol, all of it. And so I didn't know who I was. And so I couldn't wear my own face because I didn't even know what my own face looked like. So I had to wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. Go find out who you are. If you don't know, that's going to be a really big thing for you to find out. And there's only one who can absolutely show you who you are, what your purpose is. Your purpose, your identity, your God. It's going to be the same thing. What is that in? Is that in porn? Is that in TV? Is that in some other person? Or is that going to be in Christ? I want to leave you guys off with this type of thought. All right. Because God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called, right? David, great shepherd boy, very, he's known as the man after God's own heart and everything, right? He was not the best version of himself, even though he's got this title of man after God's own heart, only one who's ever called that in the Bible. Did a lot of great things, right? Very, very big, very knowledgeable, very wise, all these things. He was still not perfect, even whenever he had a great relationship with God, even whenever he was king, even whenever he did get all this money, powers, fame, status, etc. He eventually lost himself because he allowed the world to get a hold of him in enough of a way that he lost who he was, and he ended up having one of his own soldiers, what was it, his general or something, but he had one of his own soldiers killed so he could go and hook up with his wife because he's like, you know what, she's pretty, I want her. And he lost a part of who he was and what he stood for. And that happens. It can happen. But are you allowing that to happen and be your everyday? Or are you going to like fight against that and allow that to just, and well, not allow it, but if but things come up, right? We're always going to stumble and fall. But are you purposely tripping over yourself every single day? Or are you just worse, staying down because you don't even want to trip and fall? You're scared of the fall. Or are you willing to stand up and every time you trip, you get right back up and learn how to pick up your feet a little bit higher and learn how to step over those little rocks, those little hurdles that are in the way. All right. So no one that God ever called, not Moses, he was a murderer. He had a speech impediment and whatever these different variations of what people think. He was not perfect. No one in the Bible was perfect except Jesus, obviously. But he called the people not because they were qualified, but because he's like, hey, I need you for this purpose. So I'm going to build you up through me, my word, my guidance, my wisdom. God given it to them. He is going to qualify them. He's going to give them those things. But he didn't just, now you have all these things. Now you're wise. Now you're all these powerful things. It was they had to put in the work and dedicate it as a human who was and is and will always be sinful, flesh, and worldly. And they had to sacrifice that and give it themselves to God and then give him the weight of all those problems and everything. So again, and you guys look at this on social media or those big motivational, influential things, right? Listen to all these uh, athletes and movie stars and stuff. Not that they're great examples of what you should aspire to necessarily, at least for the most part. But in short, you hear their stories of, I grew up on the streets. We didn't have anything, right? We had no money. I had just had to work. I had to work. I had to work. And I had to keep trying to get to be better and become more of who I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be something more and better, and I had to put in the work. And that takes years and decades, and that people spend their entire lives working to that to just get this one moment of freedom. And that's all you need. That's all worth it. Because then the first step is always the hardest. So no, you're not at the bottom. No, you're not unworthy, right? You can work, you can put in the time and effort, you can find God and build that insane relationship that is so strong that he's like, okay, he's because God asks for willing, open vessels. He's like, I need a vessel, I need a person, I need one of my children to actually want to do my deeds and do good and help others and want to do it because he gave us free will so we can do what we do now and say, yeah, I don't want to go help that person who's in need over there on the street. I much rather stay over here and watch TV. I'd rather, flip through my phone and play with myself. That sounds much more enjoyable to me than doing a good deed. So no, so that's where we're at. And that's a mindset, that's a thought process. That's what we need to break out of is how to stop being selfish and living for ourselves and the world and how to do good, be better, become the best version of ourselves. So it doesn't matter how bad you are or how bad you think you are, promise you, there's always someone far worse than you, right? Paul was a mass murderer in the Bible and wrote most of the New Testament, right? God used him big time, even though he was killing all of God's own people whenever he was a certain way, right? But then after Christ came in, and God came in and dropped the scales from his eyes, healed him, guided him, did a full 360. So no matter how bad you are, guys, you are not as bad as anyone else. You're not any worse. You're not any better. But you are an endless ball of potential that can be used. But that's your choice. So finishing it off, guys, any questions, any thoughts, whatever about anything. Let me know what you guys thought about this. And then next week is going to be one of my absolute most favorites things to talk about, my topics wise in this 10-week series. I'm super excited for it. So any thoughts, let me know. I appreciate you guys if you have stayed this long. And until then, I really appreciate y'all. And any thoughts, any ideas, let me know. God bless. And I'll see y'all next time.